The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was fixing a breaker panel in some office building downtown. My phone buzzed, and I saw a number I did not recognize. Normally, I would let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. The voice on the other end belonged to a lawyer named Gerald Thompson, and he had news that made my hands shake. My grandfather had passed away 3 days earlier. He left me everything. $4.85 million. I stood there in that fluorescent hallway, tools in hand, trying to process what I had just heard. Gramps raised me after my parents disappeared when I was 8. He was the only family I ever really had. Now he was gone, and somehow he had saved up a fortune I never knew existed. I should have felt only grief, but there was something else. A strange, creeping sense that this news would travel to people who had no right to know. Before I tell you how greed can turn strangers into family and family into strangers, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened in that courtroom will show you why blood does not always mean loyalty. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My grandfather Harold Jensen was not a rich man in the way most people think of wealth. He wore the same flannel shirts for 20 years, drove a truck until the wheels nearly fell off, and kept his thermostat at 60 degrees even in winter. He worked as a carpenter his whole life, the kind who built cabinets by hand and refused to cut corners. I always thought he lived paycheck to paycheck like the rest of us. Turns out he had been quietly investing in stocks since the 1970s, putting away a little bit every month. By the time he died at 82, that little bit had grown into something extraordinary. I was 32 when he passed. I worked as an electrical engineer for a mid-sized construction company, pulling in decent money, but nothing extravagant. I owned a small house with a mortgage that still had 15 years left on it. Life was stable, predictable, maybe a little boring, but I was content. Gramps taught me to work hard, save what I could, and stay honest. Those lessons stuck with me even when things got tough. The day after that phone call, I drove out to his house. It sat on 3 acres outside of town, a simple ranch-style place with a workshop out back, where he used to build furniture. Walking through those rooms without him felt wrong. His coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter. His reading glasses were folded on top of a woodworking magazine. Everything smelled like sawdust and old spice. I sat down at his kitchen table and cried for the first time in years. Not because of the money, because I had been too busy with work to visit him much over the last year, and now I would never get that time back. Gerald Thompson called again the next morning. He explained that the estate included the house, the land, a stock portfolio, savings accounts, and a few other assets. Everything totaled $4.85 million, and every single cent was designated for me in a will that had been notarized and witnessed 5 years earlier. There was just one thing I needed to do. I had to come to his office to sign paperwork and attend the formal reading of the will at the county courthouse in 2 weeks. He asked if I wanted to notify any other family members. I told him there was nobody. My grandmother had died when I was 12. My parents had vanished into addiction when I was a kid. As far as I knew, I was the only one left. I started making plans that week. The first thing I wanted to do was pay off my house. That would free up $180,000 in debt and let me breathe easier. Then I wanted to help my best friend Jake, who had been talking about opening an auto repair shop for years, but never had the capital. Maybe I could invest, become a partner, give him the chance he deserved. The rest I would put into safe investments, live modestly, and try to honor the legacy Gramps left behind. Jake had been my friend since high school. We met in shop class, bonded over a mutual love of fixing things, and stayed close even when life pulled us in different directions. He was more like a brother than a friend. When I told him about the inheritance, he was genuinely happy for me, but he also said something that stuck in my mind. Just be careful, man. When people find out you have money, they come out of the woodwork, even people you thought were gone. I laughed it off at the time. Who was going to come out of the woodwork? I did not have any family left. I did not owe anybody anything. I felt safe. That sense of safety lasted exactly 1 week. The call came from a number with an area code I did not recognize. I answered, and a woman's voice came through the line. Soft, hesitant, almost sweet. "Romeo, honey, it is me. It is your mom." My stomach dropped. I had not heard that voice in 24 years. Diana, my mother. The woman who left me on my grandparents' doorstep with a garbage bag full of clothes and a note saying she and my father needed to figure things out. They never came back. For a moment I could not speak. My throat closed up. Then I managed to get out a single word. "Why?" She sighed, and I could hear her trying to sound emotional. "I heard about your grandfather. I am so sorry, baby. I know how much he meant to you. I just wanted to reach out, see how you were doing." I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Why now? Why after 24 years? There was a pause. Then she said, "I have been clean for 3 years, Romeo. Your father and I both have. We have changed. We have been wanting to reach out, but we did not know if you would want to hear from us. When we heard about your grandfather, we thought maybe this was the time. You know, life is short. Family is important." Family. The word tasted bitter. I wanted to hang up, but something kept me on the line. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was some small, stupid part of me that still wanted to believe people could change. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. "I heard he left you something. Is that true?" There it was. The real reason for the call. My jaw tightened. "He left me a little bit," I said carefully. "Enough to get by." "Oh, that is good, honey. That is real good. Listen, your father and I have been going through a rough patch. We are renting this little place, and it is not much. If you have anything extra, maybe you could help us out. Just a few thousand. We are family, right?" I felt sick. I told her I would think about it, then ended the call. My hands were shaking. I immediately called Jake. "They found out," I said. "Who?" "My parents." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Jake said exactly what I needed to hear. "Do not give them a cent. They left you. They have been gone for over 2 decades. If they really cared, they would have called years ago. This is about money, man. Nothing else." I knew he was right. But knowing it and feeling it were 2 different things. They did not stop with one phone call. Over the next few days, Diana called 4 more times. Then Frank, my father, started calling too. His voice was rougher, more aggressive. He did not bother with the sweet talk. "You are our son," he said during one call. "We gave you life. You would not even be here if it was not for us. That money came from your mother's father, which means part of it belongs to us too. You have a responsibility." I told him I did not owe them anything. He got louder. "You are going to regret this, Romeo. We are not going away." I blocked their numbers, but it did not matter. They showed up at my house 2 days later. I was in the garage working on my truck when I heard knocking at the front door. I looked through the window and saw them standing there. Diana looked older than I remembered, her face thin and lined, her hair streaked with gray. Frank had gained weight, his face red and puffy, a scar running down his left cheek that had not been there before. I did not open the door. I stood there and watched them knock for 5 minutes straight. Diana started crying loudly, making a scene for the neighbors. Frank pounded on the door and shouted my name. Finally, they left. But I knew they would be back. I called Gerald Thompson and told him what was happening. He did not seem surprised. "I was afraid of this," he said. "Legally, they could try to contest the will. They could claim that as your mother, Diana has a right to part of her father's estate, or that you have a duty to support your parents financially. It is a weak argument, but people try it all the time. What do I do? Do not engage with them. Do not give them money. Do not sign anything. And show up to the will reading in 1 week. That is when everything becomes official." That week was hell. Diana and Frank called from different numbers. They sent emails. They even posted on social media playing the victim, saying their son had inherited millions and abandoned his poor, struggling parents. I saw the posts. Some of my old acquaintances from high school commented saying I should help them out, that family is family. It made me furious, but I kept quiet. Jake, bless him, did some digging. He found their social media profiles, checked public records, and pieced together a picture of their lives. They were not clean. Frank had been arrested twice in the past 5 years for petty theft and possession. Diana had a record too. They were still using, still lying, still running the same cons they had been running when they left me. Jake also found a post Frank had made on his Facebook page just a week after Gramps died. It said, "Big things coming. My kid just inherited almost 5 million. Time to collect what we are owed." When Jake showed me that, something inside me hardened. These people were not my parents. They were strangers who happened to share my blood. They did not care about me. They never had. The night before the will reading, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Gramps, about the life he had given me, about the sacrifices he made. When I was 10, I got pneumonia and had to be hospitalized for a week. Gramps sold his late wife's car to pay the medical bills because his insurance did not cover everything. Diana knew. She was still around back then, barely. She did not offer a single dollar. She did not even visit me in the hospital. I made a decision that night. I was not going to let them take anything. Not a dollar. Not a chance. The county courthouse was an old brick building with tall windows and creaky wooden floors. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing the only suit I owned, my stomach in knots. Gerald met me in the hallway and gave me a reassuring nod. "They are already inside," he said quietly. "Of course they are." We walked into a small courtroom. It was not a trial, just a formal reading, but it felt heavy anyway. Diana and Frank were sitting on the other side of the room with a lawyer I had never seen before, a thin man in a cheap suit with slicked back hair. They looked almost respectable in their clean clothes, their faces serious and somber. Diana even had tissues in her hand, dabbing at her eyes like she was heartbroken. The judge, a woman named Patricia Winters, sat at the bench shuffling papers. She looked up as I walked in, her expression neutral. I took my seat next to Gerald, and the room went quiet. The lawyer representing my parents stood up first. His name was Mr. Peters, and he wasted no time. "Your Honor, my clients Diana and Frank Callahan are here to contest the distribution of the estate of Harold Jensen. Mrs. Callahan is the deceased's daughter and the mother of Romeo Jensen, the named heir. Under state law, children have inheritance rights when a parent dies, and it is our position that Mrs. Callahan is entitled to at least 40% of the estate, if not more. Furthermore, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan are Romeo's parents, and he has a moral and legal responsibility to support them in their time of need." He went on for another 5 minutes, citing legal precedents, talking about family obligations, painting Diana and Frank as loving parents who had fallen on hard times and just wanted what was fair. It was sickening. When he finished, Judge Winters looked at Gerald. "Mr. Thompson." Gerald stood calm and composed. He opened a folder and began. "Your Honor, the facts are simple. Diana Callahan abandoned her son Romeo when he was 8 years old. She and her husband Frank left him in the care of Harold and Margaret Jensen and disappeared. For 24 years, they had no contact with Romeo. They did not call, they did not write, they did not contribute financially in any way. Harold Jensen raised Romeo as his own son, paid for his education, his medical expenses, and provided him with a stable, loving home. The will in question was created 5 years ago, when Mr. Jensen was of sound mind and body, and it clearly states that all assets are to go to Romeo. There is no ambiguity." He paused, then added, "Additionally, there is a specific clause in the will addressing this exact situation." Diana's lawyer frowned. "What clause?" Judge Winters motioned for Gerald to continue. He pulled out the official will and began reading aloud. "I, Harold Jensen, being of sound mind and body, leave my entire estate to my grandson, Romeo Jensen. I do this with full knowledge and intention. I know that my daughter Diana and her husband Frank may attempt to claim a portion of this estate after my death. I want to make it clear that they abandoned Romeo when he was a child. They did not call, they did not visit, they did not help raise him. I had to sell my late wife's car to pay for Romeo's hospital bills when he had pneumonia at age 10 because Diana refused to help despite knowing he was sick. I consider Romeo to be my son, not my grandson. He is the only family that mattered to me. I leave him everything because he earned it by being a good, honest, hard-working young man. If Diana and Frank attempt to contest this, will I have set aside $50,000 specifically for legal fees to defend Romeo's inheritance. They will not win." The room went dead silent. I felt my throat tighten. I had no idea Gramps had written that. I did not know he had anticipated this exact moment. Diana's face went pale. Frank's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. Mr. Peters tried to recover. "Your Honor, that is clearly a biased statement made by a man who may have been influenced by—" "Stop," Judge Winters said, holding up a hand. "Mr. Thompson, do you have proof that this will was executed properly?" "I do, Your Honor." Gerald pulled out a stack of documents. The will was notarized, witnessed by 2 independent parties, and accompanied by a psychological evaluation, confirming that Mr. Jensen was of sound mind at the time of signing. Additionally, there is a video recording made by Mr. Jensen 6 months before his death, reiterating his wishes. "I want to see that video." Gerald set up a laptop, and the courtroom watched as my grandfather appeared on the screen. He looked older than I remembered his face, more tired, but his eyes were clear. He spoke directly to the camera. "My name is Harold Jensen. I am making this recording to make sure there is no confusion about what I want. I am leaving everything to Romeo because he is my pride and joy. He became a good man not because of his birth parents, but in spite of them. Diana and Frank Callahan do not deserve a cent of what I worked for. They did not care about their son when it mattered. They do not get to care now that there is money involved. Romeo, if you are watching this, know that I am proud of you. Use this money wisely, live a good life, and do not let anyone make you feel guilty for what I chose to give you." The video ended. I wiped my eyes, trying not to break down in front of everyone. Judge Winters looked at Diana and Frank, her expression hard. "Do you have anything to say?" Frank stood up, his face red. "This is garbage. That old man was bitter and crazy. We are his family. We have rights." "Sit down, Mr. Callahan." the judge said coldly. You abandoned your child. You have no moral standing here, and based on the evidence, no legal standing either. She shuffled through the papers one more time, then looked up. The will is valid. The estate of Harold Jensen is awarded in full to Romeo Jensen. The contest is dismissed. Furthermore, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan will be responsible for court fees. This hearing is over. She brought the gavel down with a sharp crack. Diana let out a choked sob. Frank slammed his hand on the table and stormed out. Their lawyer followed, looking embarrassed. I just sat there numb. Gerald put a hand on my shoulder. It is over, he said quietly. You won. But it did not feel like winning. It felt like surviving. The weeks after the hearing were strange. Diana and Frank tried to contact me one more time, sending a long, rambling email about how I had ruined their lives, how I was selfish, how I would regret this. I did not respond. Gerald handled it, sending a formal cease and desist letter. They went quiet after that. I started the process of transferring the estate into my name. It took a while, a lot of paperwork, a lot of meetings with accountants and financial advisors. But eventually, it was done. $4.85 million. It still did not feel real. The first thing I did was pay off my mortgage. Walking out of the bank with that debt erased felt better than I expected. Then I sat down with Jake and made him an offer. $100,000 to open his repair shop with me as a silent partner. He cried when I told him. We signed the papers a week later. I donated $50,000 to a local addiction recovery center in Gramps' name. It felt like the right thing to do. Maybe it would help someone the way it never helped my parents. The rest I invested conservatively. I kept working my job for a few more months, then eventually quit and took some time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I moved into Gramps' house, fixed it up, made it my own. I kept his workshop exactly the way he left it. There were moments when I still felt angry. Angry at my parents for trying to take something they did not earn. Angry at myself for ever hoping they had changed. But mostly I just felt sad for them. They could have had a relationship with me if they had tried, if they had shown up, if they had cared. Instead, they chose greed. And greed left them with nothing. I thought a lot about what Gramps said in that video, about how I became a good man in spite of my birth parents. He was right. Family is not about blood. It is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you when it is hard. Jake is family. Gerald, the lawyer who fought for me, became a friend. The neighbors who checked on me, the co-workers who supported me, they are family too. Diana and Frank are just people who share my DNA. Nothing more. One evening, I was sitting on the porch of the house watching the sun go down over the land Gramps used to walk every morning. I thought about what I would do with the rest of my life. Maybe I would go back to school. Maybe I would start a business. Maybe I would just live quietly and try to be the kind of man Gramps believed I could be. I realized something in that moment. The money was not the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the lesson. Work hard. Be honest. Take care of the people who take care of you. And do not let greed turn you into someone you are not. Some people see inheritance as money. I see it as a second chance to honor the man who gave me everything when I had nothing. So what do you think? Have you ever had someone from your past show up only when they thought you had something to offer? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe so you do not miss more stories like this. Thank you for listening. I hope you find your own kind of family, the kind that shows up when it matters. Take care of yourselves.